Okay, so this is episode 763 of Agree to Disagree. I'm here with Rachel. You said your last name was Giles, right?
Giles.
Giles?
It's okay, I get it all the time.
How do you spell it?
Giles.
Okay, because
Yeah.
so my last name is Ehringer, and people will say Inringer, Ellinger, Ehringer, which is actually like the closest, and I've gotten to the point where I've just given up for the most part.
I get Giles, Gills, Giles. I get it all. Never what it's actually supposed to be. If someone actually gets it, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Really?
We are best friends.
And so wait, what did I say? Did I say Giles or Giles?
Pretty sure you said Giles.
Okay.
But that's what I get all the time. And like in college and stuff, when they would, call roll or whatever, they would always say Giles, and I was too scared to just correct them. So the whole year, It was just Rachel Giles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll try and get that right. This is actually, we were talking before. I'm excited because this is my first episode I've ever done when this is legitimately the first time we've ever met in person.
Yeah.
And so we met through a mutual friend. Shout out Rob Foster. I'm assuming he's going to listen to this at some point. So that's awesome. But yeah, just to start, again, we touched on a lot of this just before.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about like your story. I guess we'll start like where'd you go to school and kind of what got you there?
Yeah, so I went to Texas A&M. Whoop. And really crazy story how I got there. I actually went to like 3 other schools prior. I just wanted to like try them all out and see which one fit the best, and that was A&M. But I went to A&M. I studied architecture. Was class of 19, but took a 5th year, so graduated in 2020. Gotta love it. Yeah. Thankfully, I got the football season in before COVID hit and had to move back home. So honestly, finished out college online, doing that whole thing. They always say like leaving your last final is the most anticlimactic moment. But when you close your computer in your parents' office and then walk to the kitchen and say, I just finished college, that is the most anticlimactic moment for sure. Cool. So yeah.
And then, okay, so to try and get into it, right now you've got your own wedding planning business, right?
Yes.
And so obviously far cry from architecture.
Yeah.
So what happened? How'd you get there?
Yeah, so I worked for a florist in high school, so that's kind of where I discovered weddings, I guess. I feel like I didn't really grow up going to weddings, but I just worked them in high school, and so fell in love with just the atmosphere, the vibe, the environment, but never really thought that I could make a career out of weddings or even like what I would do in the wedding world. So took aptitude tests, really struggled to figure out like what I wanted to major in. Thought I wanted to do orthodontics, thought I wanted to do oral surgery, like wanted to follow in my brother's footsteps and do like medical stuff. And all the aptitude tests that I took there, like, you for sure don't want to do that. Like, you would be so bad at that. And they said you really need something that's creative, maybe interior design, maybe like hospitality management, like something like that. So went to TCU for 2 weeks and studied interior design for 1 week. And I was like, I for sure can't do this. And went to a couple other schools and then wound up at A&M. Yeah. And they don't have an interiors program, so I studied architecture. Okay. And really thought that I was going to do the whole architecture thing. Yeah. Really put like my heart and soul into it. Really loved it, but I think at the end of the day, I kind of figured out like, I don't think I'm actually super happy doing this. Like, yikes. Anyways, fast forward a little bit. My sophomore year of college, some family friends from back home got engaged, and they were like, hey, weddings. Can you be our day of coordinator? And I was like, yeah, for sure. I just kind of blindly said yes. And I was like, I just want to make like some money and we'll see what happens. Googling like, what is a day of coordinator? What do I do? What's my job? Like, I don't even know. Yeah. And so did their wedding, and then just kind of ripple effect. Like her bridesmaid booked me, then her bridesmaid booked me. And so I was like, shoot, maybe I should like learn more of the like logistics side of this, and it'll just be like a little fun side hustle, like a little hobby of mine. So A&M has this really great program called the Professional Event Manager Certificate. So I applied to that, got in, and with that you have to have an internship. And so I think it was like fall of 2018, I was on a study abroad and had to have an internship lined up when I got back. Yeah. And I just found this girl, her name's Alex Moreau with XO Moreau Weddings and Events down in Austin. Nice. And I emailed her, just cold emailed her and was like, hey, can I give you 6 months of free labor? And she was like, yeah, you for sure can.
That's awesome.
And so did that. 6 months, worked for her, learned a ton. And then at the end of that 6 months, she was like, hey, do you mind if I like start paying you for this? And I was like, I for sure don't. Like,
no, that sounds a lot
that
better.
would be awesome. You know, that'll cover my gas, you know, getting here. So started working even more for her. And then kind of was like, maybe I should create my own business and just sort of see what happens with it. So in my brain, I was like, business, Instagram, got it. So I dropped an Instagram account and I probably booked like, I don't know, like 2 weddings a year. Like didn't really take it seriously, just was a fun
And so wait, are you still
hustle.
in college at this point?
Yes, still in college.
Okay, so this is what, like junior year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Junior, senior year, but then I was also taking a 5th year.
Yeah.
So I was just like kind of what.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was studying architecture, you know, pulling all-nighters weekly. I would like schedule them in.
Yeah.
Working a part-time job in College Station because I worked in a flower shop.
Jeez, yeah.
Was driving to Austin almost every weekend, every other weekend, doing weddings. And then also like was involved in my church, was involved in a sorority, on-campus activity. So looking back, I'm like, how the heck did I do all of that? Like,
that's crazy, yeah.
And like I made like very good grades. So I'm just like, what? Well, who am I? Like, what's going on? So, anyways, so then COVID, I graduated in the middle of COVID, and somehow landed my dream job at an architecture firm in Dallas.
Okay.
Worked for a month, and then they let all of the new people go, and I unfortunately was wrapped up in that. And
was it a larger firm?
No, it was probably mid-size, so I would say like 40 people in-house. And just kind of was like, well, I'm not really sure what's going on. So all in all, I went like probably 6 months unemployed, but was applying to job after job after job. I was applying in Austin, in DFW, in California, in Nashville, like
all architecture jobs, or
all
were you just like,
architecture. Yeah, all architecture. I even applied to grad school, got in, thought I was gonna as like a last ditch resort, and like with all the jobs, it's like I was getting rejection after rejection, and I knew it wasn't personal because of COVID and all that stuff, but to an at a point it feels personal. Like, oh my gosh, like what's wrong with me? Like, and then I remember thinking like, I have this super hard degree from this like incredible university. Like, what's the point if I can't even get a job? And honestly, into a field that I would have been a shoe into because there's not a lot of female architects out there. So I was like, I was just pissed for a very long time. I was super mad. And I remember thinking, you know, weddings weren't even happening. And I was like, frick, like the 2 things that I studied and that I'm good at, like don't exist at this point. Like, what am I supposed to do? And so with the business, my wedding planning business that I had, I shouldn't even call it a wedding planning business. It was more of like a day of coordination kind of thing. I was like, I either need to let it go or take it more seriously because it's not really feasible for me to have a 9-to-5 job and plan weddings at the same time.
For sure.
But nothing else was really going on for me. So I was like, you know what? I may as well just like try and just like see what happens. So February of 2021, completely rebranded, hired like a web design girl, did the whole 9 yards. And here we are a full year later doing wedding planning full time.
Nice. Okay, so I'll start with the easiest question.
Okay.
This is just, I don't know if it has anything to do with like the larger topic, but I'm curious. So wedding planning, day of coordination, what's the difference? Just like when I hear, I know we talked about it with Emily. Emily said she had like a wedding planner
she said a week of.
So is that like the same thing? So the wedding planner is the whole event for however long it takes, and then
so basically there's like a spectrum, I guess. So you have your day of, and that, in my opinion, there really is no such thing as a day of. Like, you cannot, in my opinion, wake up and coordinate a wedding like that's, and have no background work done, have no information. You can't just like show up and be like, this event's gonna go super smoothly. Like, what? No. But for me, you know, my view on it was, okay, I got to pay my dues, essentially. So I'm only going to offer day of coordination. But for me, I called it day of coordination, but I started working for my client 2 months in advance because I was like, I need to gather as much information as I can within those 2 months in order to make sure that your event runs smoothly, you know, and that I know like the ins and outs of it. Yeah. So there's that. Then there's a partial planning aspect, and each person kind of has a different take on what partial planning is. So that could be, you know, you handle all of your core vendors, which would be like catering, venue, photo.
And then so partial planning is different than just day of. Mm-hmm. It's like a day of, partial planning, full wedding planner.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So partial is basically like 50-50. Like you're going to do half, I'm going to do half. And then full on planning is my absolute favorite thing, because I'm in control of everything. And like, I know the ins and outs. Basically, like, you give me your budget, you tell me your vibe, we talk, like, I am your main point of contact, and then I'm going to make it all happen for you. And basically, I'm just going to present everything to you. You just have to sign off of it and like plug in your credit card number and pay for it, you know?
Yeah. Do you think it's easier in a way to do the full thing instead of doing
100%?
For sure.
I think
yeah, I'm a big control person. It's definitely it's a flaw more than anything else, but like I could see the benefit of that for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I never knew I was a control freak. If my friends listen to this, they'll be like, Rachel, what? Like of
we've
course
known
you
for
are.
A really long time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Quick side note, like, so in COVID I started going to therapy because like who wasn't going to therapy during COVID. And I remember after my first session, I called my best friend and I was like, listen, like, you're not going to believe this. Apparently I have anxiety. And she was like, are you sure? Like, come, like, of course you have anxiety, Rachel. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, it's news to me.
That's
so,
funny.
I got distracted there. I forgot what your question was.
I'll be honest, I think we're probably on a similar wavelength because I did too. Yeah. But so then actually I'm interested in this as well.
Oh, you asked if planning was easier, like full
planning. For sure.
Full planning.
For sure.
In my opinion, yes, because I'm in control of the situation. Like I know exactly which vendor we're going to use, which one is going to like fit with your budget, with your vibe, with your style, versus like day of coordination. Most people don't know. A big part of my job is just educating people on the process of planning a wedding or an event. And so a lot of people get into it. They have absolutely no idea what they're doing and they just blow their budget. And then at the end, they're out of money and they're scrapping and get these random vendors that honestly are like, yikes.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be great.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure.
No offense to anyone that does day of coordination.
So the hundreds and thousands of wedding vendors I have listening to this, they're gonna.
I'm so sorry if I hurt your feelings.
Yeah. Okay. So then we touched on this before, and this, I feel like I don't want to skip past like the initial question, and so maybe this takes a little bit of time to unpack. But you initially had mentioned how like you had trouble making decisions, right? Yeah. Which again, to me, is baffling that like you were able to start a company. Because like in my mind, I have friends that definitely have trouble making decisions. I never thought I have trouble making decisions, but I'm super like conservative in the sense of like very risk averse. I've never liked change. And so like for me, whenever I'm analyzing my own life and I'm looking at, hey, should I step out on this limb, whether it's professionally or anything else, that's terrifying to me. Yeah. Not because it's like Not necessarily because I don't know the decision to make, but just because, man, that's a big leap, essentially. Yeah, sure. But so then hearing you talk about like COVID, especially, do you think in any way, like essentially having some like decisions almost taken away as far as like the rejection associated with architecture and even with like the wedding planning, do you think that made it easier to take the initial jump of, well, like I'm going to start my own thing, or is it just going to be something difficult no matter like what circumstances you're facing?
Yeah, this is something that I've like thought a lot about, just like in my story and how I came to where I am. I think a lot, if you're an entrepreneur, like regardless of what like your focus is in, like it's going to be a risk no matter what. But a lot of people have told me, they're like, man, that's so brave that you just like create a business out of thin air and blah, 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 all this stuff, which like, I totally agree. Like, yeah, but at the same time, like I didn't have a choice, kind of is how I felt. If COVID hadn't had happened, I would be working in an architecture firm, or I would be in grad school for architecture, like working to get my license or something, even though like deep down I knew that's not actually what I wanted to do. I was just like, but this is the path that I'm on. It's what I chose. Like, this is where I am. But I really do think like COVID played a huge role in that. And at the time, like going through it, I was so mad. Like I was upset. Yeah. I was like really just angry. But now looking back, I'm like, in the weirdest way, like what a huge blessing, because like having those 6 months of unemployment really gave me the opportunity to take that risk and like take that leap and like really think about it from a business side of okay, how can I make this into a profit? Like what am I good at? Like, and then we learned as we went, you know. Yeah. But what's super interesting is like, yeah, decision anxiety I feel like is a huge thing. And it's so easy for me to make decisions for other people, but when it comes to my own self, game over. Like it's bad. It's so bad. And like especially big life decisions, it paralyzes me and it freezes me. We're working on it in therapy, but
that's so interesting. That's like that. I don't believe. Well, again, we're just now meeting, but it's like I don't believe you, because like you're sitting there, you're talking about like your college experience and managing all this stuff, and like by comparison, like I was horrible. Again, maybe this is a girl guy thing as well. Maybe girls like do a little bit better job of getting there quicker. Like, oh, I was miserable in college at like managing things, and so like you've got to at some to some level. You have to be able to compartmentalize and make decisions to be able to move forward at all and to be able to judge all those things. Yeah. And then again, even with maybe the like aid of not having a choice, to make like the jump to start your like that's still like that's a pretty freaking monumental decision. Yeah. And so it's like, so how, okay, so then, and again, this is maybe off, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I'm super interested in this. So, okay, how does that manifest like the most often? Like, what decisions do you have the most like trouble making, if that makes sense?
For myself or like for clients?
Do you have trouble making decisions for clients? Or do you run into that as well? Or is it more?
I only run into it when like, say bride and mom are fighting and like they're asking my opinion and I'm either like, well, I either have to pick someone's side and then the other person is upset with me, or I have to come up with like a creative solution to something else. So I guess like when it comes to my clients, I really don't have too much trouble making decisions.
It's just more managing conflict essentially.
Yeah. Which does not happen often.
No, for sure. But I could definitely see it happen. Yeah, for sure. Like it's
I think for myself,
do you have I'll sit there for a second.
Yeah.
This is weird. So I don't know how common it is. I don't know how common it is for parents to pay for weddings versus do you have, for example, if you have a conflict between a bride and a mom, do you tend to like more often than not take one side or the other, or is it like very case by case?
I think it's very case by case, and it's very much like, it just kind of depends on the situation. I try really hard to not pick sides and just kind of like maneuver everyone through that and find a common ground and find a good creative solution so that both sides are happy. Because that's a huge part of my job, is making like a huge reason why I even got into wedding planning is, you know, I would attend these weddings as a college student, and I would go up to the family and be like, oh my gosh, aren't you so excited? Like, today's the day. And more often than not, I would get the response of like, oh, I'm just happy that it's almost over. And I'm like, that really sucks. Like, I'm like, it's like the most exciting day for your kid's life. Mm-hmm. Like I want everyone to be excited. So a part of me was like, if there's a way that I can like alleviate that or make it a better experience for people, then like I want to find that and like help them through that.
So I'm going even further down the rabbit hole, and I'm going to pull it back.
Okay.
So I'm just again, mother-daughter conflict. Mm-hmm. If you have those, does it often end in like some sort of a compromise between, again?
Yeah. I mean,
so then have you learned or like observed anything specific about, have you learned anything about conflict management through that, if that makes sense? Or like what, like, is there like a trick to like, is there a secret as far as like to getting to that compromise that like you've observed, or is it just very much like, oh no, I don't know yet?
I would say, oh no.
We're good. We're still going.
Okay, good. I got stressed.
Yeah, I
I would say it definitely is case by case, but a lot of it is like, as a wedding planner, I am the closest vendor that the bridegroom and family work with, because I am their point of contact, but I'm also the point of contact for all the other vendors. And so a lot of it is me like listening, and for sure. it sometimes like our meetings kind of turn into a venting session, and like you learn so much about so many people. You learn a lot of different family dynamics. It honestly is, you just meet so many interesting people in the industry and in the field that, but I would say knock on wood, but I haven't had too much like conflict resolution that I've had to like work through with clients,
Well, that's super, I don't know, it's interesting just because you like, it's so dang cliche and it drives me insane. It's not one of my strengths at all. Emily's really good at it. But my dad, when my brother was first getting into sales, he talked about how like, he's like, hey, so many people think sales is being pushy and aggressive. And my dad's like, hey, a big part of it, you need to listen to your client and figure out like, hey, what need do they not have that's not being met? And like, it's not, you don't need to talk that much. It's just listening to them. And it's interesting to hear like, even again, you have this conflict. I can imagine, maybe I'm way off base, but I can imagine this wedding and you have a conflict about something that's probably very trivial, that no matter which, you could go either extreme. When the wedding actually hit, both people would probably be happy with it because it's probably a small detail like flowers or music or whatever. And really the issue is not the issue. The issue is I don't feel like I've been hurt in this or whatever. And Emily's probably sitting there laughing because like obviously with marriage, like that's a huge thing. It's just like being willing to like listen to the other person. And that's something I'm working on. Mm-hmm. But man, that's like, it's just interesting to hear how much it comes up. And then it's just annoying every time it comes up. And I'm like, dang it, I suck at it. I didn't start a podcast because I'm a good listener. I started a podcast because I'm a good talker.
Well, I think it's the same like on my end because, everyone's wedding is unique to them. But for me, it's my job. It's my career. So I see a lot of the same things over and over and over again. Sure, So it's like learning. I've had to learn like, okay, I can't get frustrated with my client because like they don't understand. This is their first time doing this. They don't understand, X, Y, Z through the whole thing. So me also like having to be a good listener and like empathetic and, all the things that come with that. I think it also plays into it as well.
Yeah. Okay. I promised I wouldn't go down the rabbit hole anymore, but I'm going to.
I had a pet rabbit in college, so like I'm all about the rabbit hole.
What was his name or her name?
Miss Kevin.
Was Miss Kevin a boy or a girl rabbit?
Well, we thought she was a boy when we first got her, and then it turns out so we named it Kevin, and then turned out it was a lady. So Miss Kevin.
That's funny. Yeah. So so I'll go down Miss Kevin's rabbit hole. No, again, this is not. I want to tie it back eventually. But I'm just interested because I've heard this in other professions as well. Do you think at all like when you have your wedding, mm-hmm. do you think being a part of the wedding like industry from a professional standpoint, do you think it'll like ruin not ruin? Do you think it'll like man behind the curtain, like where it'll like you'll know how like I'm gonna use all the cliches. You know how the sausage is made, and so it's not like as
that's a great question. I think. It's interesting because you have both guys and girls are wedding planners, event planners, but I think it's a predominantly female industry. Yeah. And a lot of women fall into it because they plan their own wedding. And they're like, oh my gosh, I love this so much. I'm going to keep planning weddings. I have not found a lot of single wedding planners, which is like what I am. So I feel like I have a different take on weddings already. Versus someone that planned their own wedding and is now doing it for other people. Yeah. We very much have different approaches to how we do things. But I also think when I first got into it, working with Alex back in college, I really was like, I don't think I'll be able to relax on my wedding day because like I know the little white lies that we tell brides, like, oh my gosh, like everything's going okay. We're really like chaos is happening. Now that I've been in the industry, like chaos rarely happens, but you never know.
They're gonna freak out regardless.
Yeah, truly.
You don't need to know any of that. They're still gonna freak out. Yeah.
So I and me, apparently someone who like has anxiety, according to all my friends and my therapist, I was like, I will never be able to relax on the wedding day, and like I will just be too worked up about it. So I think, but kind of what I was telling you earlier is like, with every wedding I do, the smaller and smaller it gets. So like I feel like now being in the wedding industry,
is that just because like
for a year?
Do you think that's just because of like ease of management, or do you think that's just genuinely you realizing like just do you think that's like a shift in priorities, or do you think that's more of just like I realize if it's smaller, it's easier to manage?
I think a shift in priorities, like really realizing like what's important to me, like. Because I mean, and like everyone's priorities are different. Like some girls or guys, like they were like, I want a live band, like that's what I really want, or like I really want like this incredible meal, and like whatever is your priority, that's what I'm gonna make happen, and that's what I'm gonna focus on. Like for me, it's more of like the people that are there, you know, like I don't want to have a big party for all of these people that aren't actually gonna like support me like throughout my marriage. Like I want 40 of my closest friends that I know are going to be in my circle for like the rest of my life, but also I'm a 4 on the Enneagram. I don't know if you're into the Enneagram at all.
Oh, I podcast, so I just rolled my eyes a little bit.
Well, there's a ton of Enneagram podcasts.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I've got lots of friends that are
super into
I don't know if this is a A&M like Christian bubble thing or what it is, but yeah, no, like so you'll have to explain to me. I'm sure there are people who know what is the 4. Like what is
right. Yeah. So the 4 is the individualist. We're the creative. Okay. We kind of have the mindset like no one can be like me. I am the only one that's like me. I have to be different. No one can copy me, which is great. Which makes sense. Like why I studied architecture, why I like push really heavy design stylized weddings, because I want each wedding to be so different. But also like when it comes to me, I'm like, okay, my thing has to be so different from everyone else. So like we're going to do like the complete opposite. I'm a 4-wing 3. So the 3 is like the ambition, like whatever. So it makes sense how I'm self-employed, entrepreneur, go-getter kind of vibe. So yeah.
Okay. So then I swear I think you just have to stop answering, because every time you answer, I'm dead convinced that, okay, this is my last, I'm going to bring it back next. No. You're still really young, so maybe not. Do you have? This is always something that's been interesting to me as well. Because, like, for example, and maybe we'll touch on this later as well. But like for me, my whole thought is, it'd be so. This is a stupid example. It'd be so cool to be a professional golfer, and then the immediate response, not the immediate, but the response from a lot of people would be, hey, well, eventually everything becomes a job, if that makes sense. Like everything is a job. For you, you've been doing it at least a couple of years. So again, maybe still relatively new, but do you still like feel, is it still something, because again, maybe we'll touch on this later. There's this idea of like follow your passion and do what you're passionate about. Is it like, do you think it's different than working a job? Is there still burnout associated with it or anything like that?
Yeah, there's for sure burnout. I think the burnout rate in the wedding industry is super high, especially coming out of like this little COVID season that we've been in, because we've had all these in October and November, I worked 23 weddings in 7 weeks. Jeez. That's 2 to 3 every single weekend. Like it was tough.
That's crazy.
It was tough. So I know a lot of wedding professionals that after, 2021, they're like, forget it. And they've really cracked down on like how many weddings they're going to take in a year, getting really strict with their contracts and their boundaries, which is super important. So I think if you like take care of yourself and you invest in yourself, invest in like therapy, or if that's what you need, or like setting really strict boundaries or hiring on an assistant or something like that, you lessen the chance of you burning out. But when I get like super overwhelmed with work, like a part of me is like, oh my gosh, like it is just a job, and like some days I'm like, oh, I don't want to work, because I mean, it can be pretty lonely sometimes, because I just wake up and I go to my office and it's just me on my computer all day long. Like, and like, I'm talking to people, I'm emailing to people, but it's not like I can like sit down and have a coffee with my coworker, or something like that. But at the same time, I have so much freedom in my schedule by being my own boss of like, okay, I want to take like a 2-week vacation, or I want to go to Hawaii for like a week, you know, and just like, you know, so there's a lot of it's, I feel like it's a double-edged sword. Like at some point, like, yes, it is a job. It is a transaction. Like it is my like way of making a living, but I would much rather it be where I'm calling the shots, where I'm getting to like decide when I want to work, how much I want to work, and like what type of work I'm doing, and answering only, you know, to myself versus like answering to like someone higher up and like having to work my way up in a company. And I think too, being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, there's always the challenge of, okay, how can I don't want to get stuck. Like, how can I take it to the next level? How can I level up? At what point can I add on, you know, another employee, or, you know, all these other things. So I think the challenge of it all also, at least for me, helps me keep going. Of like, okay, I'm not going to get stuck in just this, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's also different levels to weddings. The way I like to think about it is like you have your target level, and then you have like Dillard's, then you have Neiman Marcus. And like your type of clientele, you know, and like the type of like, you have like your standard normal wedding, and then you work your way up to like mid-size, mid-luxury, luxury, super high-end, you know? And so working your way, I just have it as a store level because I like to shop. Yeah. So that's how I like measure it in my brain. And so if you're able to get up to like the luxury level, that's where it gets like super, super fun and like really, really cool.
So yeah, okay, so then 2 follow-ups. And actually this is, without even trying, I think we got sort of back on track, which is cool. So I guess that's interesting. So you talked about like leveling up and stuff like that. And again, I don't know as much about the wedding industry, and you sort of just touched on it. So 2 questions. What, like, in the next 2 years to 5 years to 10 years, like what are your long-term goals? Like, are you wanting, I'm assuming based on you talking about it, you haven't brought anyone else on yet. Are you wanting to bring people on eventually? And then also, like, is your ultimate goal to do bigger and bigger weddings, or more weddings, or a variety?
So starting out, my goal was like, okay, 2 weddings every month. That's 24 weddings a year. Like, that'll be great. Yeah. Well, I've surpassed that. Yeah, I was gonna say, I did that quicker than what I thought. Yeah. So, I think, yes. So I have a couple people that work contract for me. So almost always I bring an assistant on for a wedding. And so I have a couple girls that I reach out to and I bring them on. It's case by case, but most likely like I'm going to bring an assistant and add
but
that
these
on.
Are not like, these aren't employees. These
Correct,
are like, And then are these like college girls? Are these people out of college that are working like in the field, but not who is that typically?
Yeah. So, one of them, she is like a social media marketer girl, works for a company, down in College Station. We met each other like through, I actually did her sister's wedding. Like, nice. I think her sister's wedding was like the 3rd or 4th one I'd ever done. And she was really good. So during my crazy fall, I was flip-flopping back and forth between College Station and Austin. I basically lived out of a suitcase for 2 months. And so I ended up living with her for like 2.5 weeks. And we really weren't close at the time, but I was like, hey, I just need like a free place to stay. Like, can I stay with you? And through, we both were working from home. And so she really got to see what I was doing. And she would ask questions, but never was like, wow, like that looks so fun. I really want to do that for you. Or I want to get into that. She would just like ask questions. And then one day she was like, well, if you ever need help, like just let me know. And I was like, hey, like, do you actually want to help? And the reason why that was intriguing to me is because I get a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, your job looks so fun. It's so romantic. Like it's all butterflies and kisses and all this good, happy stuff, which like, yes, it is. But I'd say it's like, dude, it's a grind. Like I'm working 24/7 because like I'm juggling so many hats, because it's just me. So I appreciated that she didn't like butter me up, and then I have another girl who is a stay-at-home mom, and she is in DFW, so she is my assistant for my DFW weddings. Nice, okay. The other girl is my like Austin, College Station wedding girl. Yeah. But kind of same thing, like she just is, both of them are super type A, which really helps me out because most planners are type A, but I'm very much type B. Like I'm super.
I've only heard of type A. Dang it. Okay, wait. What is type B? Quick, and then we'll.
Okay. Yeah. Type A is like you are crazy organized. Yeah. You just like you follow schedules, checklists. Like you are very just like. Yeah. If the people can hear this and know what I'm doing. And then type B is like super laid back, like, hey, it's all going to work out, like super chill, all that stuff. Yeah. So a lot of planners are type A. I'm very much type B. So I am honestly like opposite of what every planner should be, but I think that is what gives me my edge and like what makes me different and why people enjoy working with me, because it's not ever stressful, because I don't like being stressed. So, and I don't like being overwhelmed. So I'm not going to like bring that into my job, you know? So both of my assistants are super type A, which helps me, my type B self, like we just balance each other out really well.
That's really cool because like, and so when I think about most people who like, and again, this is from total ignorance, but when I think about most people who start a company, it seems like they should be type A. Like, oh, you should be really organized. I think a lot of people are. Right. It's interesting. I don't know. I don't think he even listens to this, but the company I currently work for, the guy who started the company, I don't know. In some ways, maybe he is type B, but like he is the least organized person on the planet, and he's very laid back, and he's very much low stress, and he does a great job. It's not that he doesn't work hard, but it's like he does a great job of like. He could be in the middle of having 5 submittals during the week, and like it's not priority number one to him, and he does a really good job of just staying calm. And I think like to some extent that probably is really helpful when you're starting a company. Just like for me, I don't know for sure. I think I'm very much type A, and it's like I get so dang concerned about the minutia that I so often like I miss the forest like through the trees. I don't know what the freaking saying is. It's like you like the whole point is like you get lost in the details, so you fail to see the big picture. And it's like that's so much. And so it's like for me, like if I were to go out on my own, like I would need a huge dose of the laid back, because there's no I wouldn't be able to stay sane if it wasn't for that.
I think because of the industry that I'm in, like there are so many moving parts. Like if I got so caught up in it, which this is not to say I'm not detail oriented, because I am, but if I were to get so caught up and like so worked up and like so focused on something, then like it would be so stressful for everyone else. Like if people are stressed, then I'm not doing my job. My job is to take on all of the stress, which I think is how my architecture degree really plays into this, because I'm super, with architecture, like, you talk about a stressful major, like, holy moly. I did not have a life for all 5 years. So I think I've learned time management, and somehow now I just kind of thrive in stressful situations, which I hope that doesn't make me sound like a psychopath, but
no, that's super. Well, maybe to my 5 viewers it might make you sound like a psychopath. To me, like that makes complete sense. It's actually like
I think it really taught me just like the discipline and like the grind, and like I know the work that it's going to take to like get the outcome that I want. I'm very determined. I'm pretty stubborn. But I think all of that like works in my favor in this industry that I'm in.
Nice. That's really cool.
But the thing is too, like, I think everyone can be an entrepreneur. I don't think everyone should be an entrepreneur. Just like everyone can be a doctor, but like I for sure should not be a doctor. And like my aptitude test told me that. They're like, you for sure don't need to go into this field. So I feel like you definitely have to have like the personality and like just the ability to, number one, like juggle a lot of hats and kind of just go with the flow and be like, because there's never going to be a right time. You're never going to know like what you're doing. It's just kind of like I'm going to figure it out as I go. Like if I had a game plan when I started this, like I would be so
terrifying. Get the heck out of here.
No, like if I had a game plan when I started, and then being where I am now, like I would be like stressed. I would be like, I got to retire. Like I can't do this. Like because I'm not where I thought I would be, or I'm not what I planned, which is so interesting because I'm a planner. Like it's very like my whole. It's just a big juxtaposition, honestly. Like
no, I don't understand because I haven't done what you've done, or I haven't accomplished what you've accomplished. But it makes sense because it's like,
I think the whole point is to not understand.
Yeah, I suck
like,
at that. No, heck
point.
no. So actually, there's two ways I can go with that. I'm going to table one because I want to talk about both. I want to circle it back to, just I kind of interrupted you at the very beginning. So yeah, 5-10 years. More upscale weddings, more weddings. Like what's or something totally different?
Yeah. So I think, within the next 2 years, I would love to be able, number one, to hire a VA. I think that would be a virtual assistant.
Okay. Yeah, save me the question.
Yeah. Just because to help me keep things up on the back end, of keeping up with my books and social media and keeping up with just the little minute things of running a business. It would be nice if I could bring one of my assistants on full time and maybe have her be my assistant and my assistant coordinator. It would also be nice if I could transition one of them into the role of lead planner, so that I'm not having to work every single Saturday, and get some time off. So I think it would be really cool to eventually work my way to having a team. And of course, as I'm working and building my team, I want to work my way up to the high end, 100K, 200K weddings.
Yeah.
Because that, I feel like creatively, I would just have so much fun with those. It would be a dream for sure. And then I think since when I graduated college, I really thought I was going to move to Austin. That was my plan from sophomore year. I was like, I am moving to Austin. That's why I got connected with Alex, really got connected in the wedding industry down there.
Yeah.
Obviously that didn't happen. Moved back to DFW. But now I've marketed myself to both locations. So, I think it would be awesome if I could have an Austin team and then a DFW team and cater to both. But it's not necessarily me driving back and forth every single weekend between the two cities.
Yeah. Different follow-up. I'm curious. So you mentioned, I didn't totally blanked. You mentioned you're working most Saturdays. 2, how many hours a week do you think you work? 2, are you able to have hobbies while basically starting a company? Again, I think you're relatively early on in the process where it's still probably very much, I don't know. Are you able to do stuff on your own?
Yeah. So what I have recently figured out is that there's wedding seasons. So for me, my most busy is between end of February and end of May, and then June, July, August, pretty chill. I think I have 1 or 2 booked between.
The summer is less busy? That must be a Texas thing.
It probably, who wants to get married in 115
sure.
degree heat? Yikes. Yeah. If you do, I'm questioning you. What is wrong with you? Why are you putting your guests through that?
Yeah. We did that, and it was because I'm an idiot. Is what happened. I didn't want to have a fall wedding because I didn't want to conflict with football season. And then
classic Aggie there.
I think we wanted to get married relatively quickly, and so I'm trying to think. Spring was we probably would have done spring, but it was too quick, where we couldn't have planned it all. So it was as soon as we could have without getting into the fall. Mm-hmm. Sorry, but I didn't interrupt.
No, you're
good. Okay, hobbies, wedding seasons, go.
Yeah. So there's your spring wedding season and then fall. So I get kind of a good break between June and August, mid-September, and then mid-September through end of November is when it picks up again, and then December, January, early February, pretty chill. At least for me. I think every person is different in this industry. But for me, prime would be, okay, I just work 3 months. I take 3 months off. Not working, but 3 months of weekend work of weddings. And then I get 2 or 3 months where I don't have any weekend weddings, So I think it definitely varies. What's interesting about my field of work is I feel like it's just a game of chance, honestly, of I never know how many weddings I'm going to book a month. There is no set, I know and that's what makes doing my taxes like impossible.
Oh,
like,
I don't even,
predicting my income, yikes, like what an absolute nightmare.
Yeah. Do you have to, I don't even think I want to know. Do you have to like track, do you have to like track, basically like keep receipts of like all the money you've received in order to then do your taxes at the end of the year?
Yeah, so I do quarterly payments just to make it a little bit easier. But I have to track all my mileage. I have to track like all my gas.
That sounds
I have to
disgusting.
Oh, it's like my poor father. He's the one that takes care of all of it
for
now. After this year, he was like, no more. Like you're hiring a CPA, and I was like, honestly, I probably need to.
That's fair. Yeah.
So that talking about 5-year, 10-year plan, 1-year plan is within the year. Like I have to hire a CPA. Like I just have to. That's the part that really, like a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. You're your own boss. Like blah blah blah, and like heck yeah, like it's awesome. It's also a nightmare. The back end stuff and just like figuring out, like I went to school for architecture. I have never taken a business class in my life. Like I have learned as I've gone. We just kind of jumped right in. Like I didn't even do any prep. I was like, here we go. Whoop.
That's freaking ballsy as hell. Oh no, that's not something I'm doing.
But I would say like,
dang,
in wedding season, I'm probably working like.
We're gonna cut this conversation off right here, because now I just feel bad about myself.
In wedding season, I probably work like. I mean, I don't want to sound dramatic, like 70, 80-hour weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, wedding days alone are at least 12 hours, like on my feet. And then, but that in like high season, in like my summer season, I probably will work like the average. I don't even know what an average work week is, like 50 hours a week.
I don't know. Well, for us, it's technically 40 hours. It just depends on company, depends on your job, depends on what you're doing and what you consider like.
I would say like
what all you consider working, if that makes sense.
Okay, and the thing is too, like with being my own boss, it very much, I try to stick to like 9 to 5. I only take meetings during 9 to 5, but do I close my computer at 5 o'clock?
For sure.
No. Yeah. Do I? Well, I'm not going to say that part because I don't want any of my clients. I'll just say it. Do I log onto my computer at 9 o'clock every day? Like, no, or like, do I take a longer lunch? Like, yeah. But I make up for it, so it's very much what I have learned over this past year is just like, I have to be so disciplined with myself and like hold myself accountable because like no one else is going to do it,
sure,
so I've definitely had to learn that.
That's really cool. It's like when you're when you're your own boss, everyone obviously is like, oh, cool, you get to do whatever you want with your time, and you can vacation when you want to do. Yeah, but also like there is no one to pass off anything on. Yeah. Like the buck stops with you. Like if it fails, it's your fault it fails, and that's like, geez. Yeah, I have the guy I work for. He started his own company in 2003, and here we are in 2022, and we've got 20 employees, and he's done really, really well. And I can't imagine him like taking that jump at the beginning.
Yeah, all my friends, they have been really like invested and like so supportive and so loving, which like I absolutely love. But at the same time, I think especially when I first started, like really took the jump and I was like, start my own business. Like, here we go. It wasn't even like hey, I think I'm going to start my own business. It was more of like I'm just going to try this out and like see what happens because I don't have a job. And then it really picked up momentum and I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, I guess and even after I launched like Honey & Co. Weddings, probably like the first 6 months, I was like, I'm still going to do architecture. Like this is just like a thing that I'm doing right now. And then at one point, my friend was like, so I think you're a full-time wedding planner. And I was like, I think you might be right. You officially crossed
the threshold.
Yeah. And so, I kind of forgot what I was saying with that, but just like my friends have done a really good job of like, Rachel, take some time off, or like, hey, because they're like, I was a workaholic in college. I'm just a perfectionist, and I'm a perfectionist, but I'm also type B. Like I don't make sense. That is what I'm discovering about myself.
You need room for, there you go.
Yeah, they have been really good with just like helping me, take a step back or like close my computer or like have a good work-life balance, because I feel like as an entrepreneur, especially a work from home entrepreneur, you have to be so disciplined with your work-life balance, or like it's not going to exist, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So then this is another just interesting thing, or I'm interested in it. You mentioned like social media and like the not accounting, but the finance side of it. How much time do you think you spend on that type of stuff? And like, how much business do you have like through social media? Because again, we touched on it early on. Social media is such a tricky thing because it's like again, it doesn't work super well for me personally, but that's due to my own flaws more than anything else. Like it's such a powerful tool, and it's like especially like now, I feel like it's probably a drawback if you're not able to handle social media well, and if you are, it's probably like a huge potential boost for whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So I have a personal, and then I also have like my business one. With my personal one, I don't give a crap like what I'm posting. Like it's just whatever. I'm like, this for me, this for my friends, like whatever. When it comes to my business one, wow, I get like really hung up. Like I'm like, I have to be professional. Oops, I just hit the mic.
It's okay.
Whoops.
Yeah.
I have to be professional, but I have to be fun, but I need to be politically correct, but I need to like do. So there's like a ton of thoughts that go into it. It's a great place to go and like find inspiration. I would say probably like 50% of my inquiries that come in like find me through Instagram. So I do think like it is necessary, and it's like a super powerful tool. But you can so easily fall into the trap of like comparison, or like, oh, I'm not where this person is, or like this person started their business after me and they're doing better than me, or I didn't get as many.
Who the heck do you know that started after you that's doing better?
No one.
Because to me, I hear all this, and I just like, we were just talking about this the other day. I have another guy. I may end up having him on the podcast pretty soon as well. But we work together, and now he's not like juggling like 5 businesses, and he has 2 kids, and he's involved with their baseball team, and it's like, and then you're doing all this, and I hear that, I'm like, oh my, what the heck am I doing with my life? No, that's super impressive for sure. And I also, whether it's true or not. Sorry, I literally told you at the beginning to get close to the mic, and I'm sitting here talking back here. Whether it's true or not, I get how like the temptation to comparison. Again, even if that comparison's not legit, like I get how social media can fuel that. I didn't mean to interject in to begin with, but
oh no, you're good. You're good. No, I think with me, I just have to be super disciplined of like knowing what my triggers are with social media, or knowing like, okay, I've had too much, or like I need to get off because this isn't good for me, and just kind of focusing on like the other crazy thing too. Well, maybe this doesn't really have to do with social media. I was just going to talk about like the long con of number one, being an entrepreneur, having your own business, but with the field of work that I'm in, like I've had to learn, like I'm an instant gratification kind of person. Like I do something, I want to like feel like that, you know. With this and wedding planning, like I mean, I have to wait like 12 to 18 months to see like the fruition of my work. So because I'm planning a wedding, and the wedding's not going to be for 9 to 12 to 18 months in advance, so I have to wait that period, all while knowing like, oh man, like this is going to look so good, like I can't wait to see how all this turns out. Then the wedding finally comes. Then I have to wait 2 to 3 more months to get the photos back. Then if I'm going to publish that in a magazine, I have to wait 2 to 3 months for a magazine to pick it up, or a publishing company to pick it up. Then I have to wait another like 1 to 2 months for it to come into print. So it's like all in all, the work, if I book a wedding today, I'm not going to see the results of that for at least a year. You know, so it's one of those things too that I've also had to wrap my mind around. You know, the things that I see on social media, those were things that happened a year ago. You know, that wasn't
I see
like
what you're saying. Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't like I woke up the next day and like this happened, you know? So like dropping my website a year ago, I am just now kind of seeing the results of that, because I'm just now implementing and coordinating the weddings that I instantly booked when I dropped my website, and like able to get that content, versus now I'm at a new level, but even still I'm not going to be able to like see those results for another like 6, 8, 9 months.
Yeah. You know? That's a really cool perspective to have. Yeah. And that's like part of the job as well. Yeah. How do you, and you just mentioned one, how do you like, again, not necessarily related, how do you discipline yourself? Because you mentioned like the importance of like being able to like discipline yourself. Do you have any like hard and fast rules, or just like more soft rules for like how you discipline yourself with social media, or like how much time you spend on X, or is it just more just like that is more connected to the job? Like by default, hey, I'm an instant gratification person, but by default, my job, like it just doesn't work that way. And so it like pulls, there's the tension there between what I'm going to do, but just what happens. Sorry. I didn't,
Yeah, no, I think there's two answers to that. I think the first one is two answers. First answer has two parts. Part one. I had to learn, or I set like the like social media timer, or like, okay, you've spent like X amount of time on social media. Yeah. And so once I hit that, I was like, okay, I'm going to get off. Then I got better at not spending, all hours of the day on social media. But I had to learn, I kind of mentioned this. How what?
How did you get better at not spending all hours of the day on social media? Because like social media is addictive, and it's designed to be addictive. Right. So like, did that just happen?
Right.
Or like, is it like how'd you get there?
Well, I watched The Social Dilemma. And
solved.
It freaked me out. Yeah. After I watched that documentary, I think I deleted all my social media for like at least 2 months. I was like, get away, like no. Yeah. But I think I got more and more busy with work, and I was like, I can't. Because there's no one else to pick up the slack, kind of like we talked about earlier. Like if something doesn't get done, like it's because I didn't get it done. And all of my business is based on referrals. So like I am going to give 110% to every single client, because without them, I'm not going to be able to book like more clients, So just kind of having that mindset, and then also learning like what my triggers were. Like I know if I go to like, I don't know, so-and-so's profile, like it's gonna like make me go on this like downward spiral and like not feel good about myself. And like if I know that, and I know it's not going to be good for my heart, then like I'm not going to tempt myself in that way. And so that's where like the discipline comes in of like, okay, I'm not even going to like entertain that idea. Part two is, you
did an excellent job of pulling that back. Because I totally unintentionally like just cut in, and you did a great job pulling that back. So yeah, part two.
Oh, thank you. Part two would just be like learning patience. So knowing that I am, and this is something that I've been working on for years, even before I started my own company. I remember in like college, I kind of had this like come to Jesus moment. I was like, man, I'm a pretty impatient person. Like I don't like waiting around. I like things to happen instantly, like, man. And so I remember my prayer, honestly, all throughout college was like, Lord, just make me a patient person. Like, please give me patience, blah, blah, blah. All while realizing I'm not becoming a patient person. Like, man, this sucks. And then like years later, probably in my 5th year of college, I had another come to Jesus moment. And I was like, oh, the Lord is not just going to instantly make me a patient person, but he's going to give me opportunities to practice patience. And then eventually, hopefully I will become a patient person. And so what better way than to like throw me into a field and open up the door of like, wow, you have to be patient in this field in order to like thrive in it. So that is my answer to your question.
That's so interesting, because just as a response to the last thing, and I don't know time-wise if we'll be able to get to it, but one of like the questions I had written down is, well, the heart behind one of the questions I had written down is something similar, where it's like I've realized the same thing in my field. Like we've talked about this, it's like there's value in doing things that you don't like and that you don't want to do and that you're not good at, because it's just like you said, like being forced to be in a field for you that necessitates patience helps to develop patience. And I realized like in my own field, not as an entrepreneur or anything, but like part of it is, hey, first of all, dude, you've got to learn how to work and be disciplined. And that means like you've got to learn how to do stuff you don't like doing, because that's going to cultivate that ability to just like to discipline yourself and be able to handle adversity and stuff like that. So that's super interesting to hear you coming at it from a different like a different perspective.
Yeah. I think a lot of it too, no matter what field of work you're in, is just learning to like shift your perspective. Like I think it's really easy to fall into this mindset, like kind of like a worldly mindset, and like be super negative about stuff and viewing your job as like, oh, it's just a job and like blah, blah, blah. But I think like we do have the ability to shift our mind and change the way that we think about something. And then once you do that a certain number of times, or not even a certain number of times, but once you do that over and over again, like you start to believe that, if that makes sense.
Not a fair question at all.
Okay.
So again, jobs are jobs for sure. And again, not to take anything away at all, but okay, it's easy to shift your mindset and have a good attitude if you're doing something you really, really love. What would you like if you were talking, or if I wish I had a better analogy. If someone who was working in the McDonald's drive-thru window, not because like not someone in high school who's working in the McDonald's drive-thru window to make money so they can go out to the movies on Friday, but someone working in the McDonald's drive-thru window because hey, they've got to feed their kids. How do you think, like how does that person shift their perspective? Or again, for the vast majority of people who aren't doing something that, well, maybe that's not true. For a large chunk of people who work who aren't doing something that they love, how do they shift their perspective?
Yeah, great question.
And it's totally not fair.
Hopefully I can come up with a great answer. This is probably not like I feel like people are going to be like, that's kind of a cop-out answer. Yeah. What I'm going to say, I think a lot of it is how I was raised. So like my parents did a really great job with both me and my brother of teaching us like, don't just get a job to have a job and make money. Like find something that you're good at, find something that you're passionate about, and like, because then it will be more enjoyable. And they're like, use the talents that like the Lord gave you and like have that manifest itself into a career. So like for my brother, that was going medical school. He's going to be a doctor and really like helping people. For me, it's more of like, I'm going to like literally create a job out of thin air. But so especially like when COVID hit, and I was unemployed for those 6 months, my parents really, I was like, I just got to like take a job. Like I just got to find something, you know. My dad really did a great job of being like, don't just take a job to have a job. Like even in COVID, like I had a couple of job offers from architecture firms, and like I could have taken them, and I really thought I was going to, but I just had a feeling. I was like, I just like don't like love the idea, you know? Yeah. And my dad honestly was like, don't take it. Like even in the height of like everyone was getting laid off, I got this job opportunity, and my dad was like, don't take it if like you don't feel good about it. So I think for me, from a very like young age, I was raised to think about my future career not as just like a way to make ends meet, but more so like it doesn't matter how much money you make, just as long as you are happy and like passionate about what you're doing. I know that's like a cop-out answer, and a lot of people are like, well, that's not realistic, but like I feel like it can be realistic if like you actually believe that.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a cop-out answer, and like I think no, I think it's a really good answer. My fault, what I'm interested in, okay, so what if no one's interested in being a trash truck driver? Does that make sense? Like I guess the related question is, and you touched on it earlier with something different. It was, hey, I think I forget exactly what you said. Did you say, I think everyone can be an entrepreneur, but not everyone should? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then the related question, similar to that, can everyone do what they're passionate about? And I think that's like a very big thing with our generation is like, hey, don't be like our parents' generation where, hey, they worked at the same company for 30 years and they hated it and they were miserable. Right. I think there's something there. But yeah, at the same time, like, okay, well then what happens if our entire generation now says, okay, well, I'm just going to do what I love, which again, I think that there's a lot there, but who loves being a trash truck driver? Who loves being, why is that the only dang miserable profession? Cleaner. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like all the things that I would put on like MASH. Do you remember that? It may have been just like a girl thing.
I think it was. Wait, run it by me.
It was like a mansion, apartment, shack, house, and then like who are you gonna make? You put like too good, too bad, and you like go through.
Okay, for sure.
On the job section, I would always put porta potty cleaner as like one of the bad jobs.
Is that an official job?
Someone's got to do it.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, someone's
got to do it.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not me. To answer your question, I think, yes, you can make a job out of whatever you're passionate about, but you have to be a realistic, like, okay, maybe I'm not going to make $50K a year, or I'm not going to make $100K. Yeah. Like, I think if you're good at it and you are business savvy and, you know, the cards kind of work in your favor, yeah, it's going to turn into like something super big. But I do think like you have to be realistic with yourself and realize like, okay, maybe I will make more money if I go to a corporate job and do something and be more of like a workhorse, or I'm going to take the risk, take the jump, and just kind of like see what happens, and like hopefully it works out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Why, in your opinion, shouldn't everyone be an entrepreneur?
I think most entrepreneurs that get into it don't have a clue what they're getting themselves into. I mean, I for sure didn't. Like, when I figured out how much I was going to have to pay in taxes, I literally cried. I was like, this has to be a joke. Like, there's no way. Like, what? So I think not everyone should, because not everyone can handle, like, the pressure and the stress of it. Like I said, I think a lot of people can't handle the rejection. So I've had to really change my thought process on what rejection is. I used to take it, like if a client didn't book me, I would take it so personally. I'd be like, okay, what's wrong with me? Was I priced too high? Yeah. Do they not like my style? Did they just not like me? Like what? But kind of realizing if they decided they didn't want to work with me, then it wasn't going to be a good fit. And I would probably be miserable, and I'd be like, man, I'm ready for this client to like be in the rearview mirror. And so kind of shifting, like I said, changing your thought process, shifting your perspective, and realizing like, okay, if someone else rejects me, it's not me that they are rejecting, but rather now I get a Saturday off, or now I get the opportunity to like book a client that I really like, you know? But I think it's very much, you have to view everything like glass half full and kind of have like a very like optimistic perspective, or within like your first like 5 years being self-employed, running your own business, like it's gonna be tough. And I say it like I don't know, I'm just like speaking from my experience of like, for sure. Like if I was following a very strict plan, I would be so stressed out. Like I would probably be bald or like have gray hair or something, because I'd be like, oh my gosh, nothing is going according to plan. But with wedding planning, you gotta like be able to work on the fly, and you gotta yeah, we have a plan, but you also have to be like super flexible.
Yeah. And this is, you sort of said something along these lines, but this is something I'm bad at, but something my friend and I talked about, where it's like, you have to, before, in my opinion, in my opinion, before you try and do something you love, you have to be able to be content with what you're doing. Like you have to create a good situation with what you're currently doing, because like it's not, the grass isn't automatically greener on the other side, where it's like just switching jobs, even if it's not doing it on your own, just switching careers or switching jobs, that's not going to fix the problem. Like every job is a job. It's going to require work. It's going to require doing some things you don't like. And so like you have to at first realize, hey, I'm going to work hard with what I'm doing, and I'm going to like, for me, it's work as if you're serving the Lord, not others. And that's a really freaking hard thing. I suck at it. But yeah, we're at like an hour 8. I was going to let it respectful of everyone's time. So yeah, she said 5 minutes. We can do, I was thinking like an hour and a half ish. If like, yeah, we can cut it off earlier for sure. Question related as well, because this is something I've always wondered about, where, can all passions be monetized? Like, can all passions be turned into a career?
I mean, I don't see why not. But I guess it also depends on what your passion is. Like, it could be a huge scope, but a part of me, I feel like before taking this leap and taking this jump, I'd be like, nah, no way, like be realistic. But now being on this side of things, I'm like, well, why not? Like what do you have to lose? Like just try, you know? But again, I'm speaking from a point where I started this business where I literally had nothing going on. Like I was unemployed, I'd been let go. I was living in my parents' house like as I don't know how old, like 24 years old, and was just like, I kind of have no choice. I just got to try and we'll see what happens, you know? So I think it depends on your circumstance and your situation for sure. But the positive, optimistic side of me is like, well, why not? Just like try. Maybe it's not going to be a career, but like if it's going to bring in your rent money, then why not? Because that's how I viewed weddings at first. Not when I took it full time, but when I was doing it as a side hustle, I was like, okay, I'm going to work architecture and that's going to provide and be everything. And then weddings will be like maybe my car payment or like my rent money or my vacation money, you know? And then it really just kind of, now it's all of those things.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, because, man. Yeah, just it was, that's interesting to hear. And it's also like most of the time, like I think you're probably the first person outside of John David, who I work for, and we've talked about it a couple times. You're probably the first person I've talked to in person that's actually done their own thing. But like every time I listen to podcasts with like really successful people who've done their own thing, what always freaks me out is it feels like every single time it's like, oh, I was at wit's end. Like I had given everything to this thing and I had no idea it was going to take off, and then it took off. Yeah. It's like, that's the part where that's terrifying to me. Yeah. It's like, man, I want to dip 2 toes in. And I want to like then be able to have it take off and have a nice soft like landing area if it fails. I mean, it's like I feel like you can't be successful doing that.
Yeah, you just have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable and just kind of like be okay with like, ooh, what's around this corner? What's going to come next? And like, yeah, I'm going to fail, but I'm not going to let that failure define me. I'm going to let the growth that takes place happen and like learn from those mistakes so that like I'm able to make better decisions for my business in the future, you know? And at the end of the day, like, I'm like, okay, if it fails, the good thing with weddings is weddings are always going to happen. So I do have like a little bit of safety in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I was some other like self-starter, yeah, that's a little more risky. But for me, my thought process is like, okay, I always have other career choices. There's other people I can go work for, like if things don't work out, you know, or like I can go find, and there are always going to be jobs. And so like, I feel like now I'm like saying the complete opposite of what I've been like promoting this whole time, is like, do your own thing, be self-employed, all this stuff, like don't work for someone else. But like, if I were to fail, there's other jobs out there. Like I can go work for someone else, you know, so it wouldn't be the end all be all. But I do think I think it's just like kind of how your cards fall and like your circumstance and your situation. And I don't know if any of this is making sense.
No, it does for sure.
I'm a big rambler, so sometimes like halfway through my sentences, I'm like, what was the point I was trying to say?
No,
somehow I try to like loop it back.
Yeah, Emily will always make fun of me where I'll be talking about something and she's like, Nick, where are you going with this? And I'm like, I don't know.
I forgot halfway through.
I'm very much like stream of consciousness how I talk, and like I talk. I don't. The company I last worked for, one of my boss, he finally kind of got it, where it was like, oh, Nick, you like literally just process stuff as you like through talking. Yeah, it's the same thing.
I'm a big verbal processor.
Yeah, I don't know another way. It's the only way I can get out basically what I've got up here, and it's gonna come out super imperfectly, but it's just I've just got to start going. And I've gotten to the point with like friends with just other things. As soon as I see something or think of something, I'll immediately text it to them, and it'll be a novel. Yeah. And it's like, Nick, what the heck is this?
Like, I'm like,
dude, if I let it go a day, I'll forget about it. And it was obviously important enough for me to share. So hey, take it or leave it. Read it in 5 days. I don't care what you do with it. Just that's like where I'm coming from. Yeah. So yeah. I'm way. Actually, no. Yeah, we never tied this dang loop, and I'm gonna tie the loop.
Tie the knot.
All the way back to bad at decision making. Oh, we got off onto clients, and then it was just. So, what are the decisions you personally like struggled the most with, or like, and then like through starting your own business, have you found Like, has that gotten easier, or is it still just, is it the same? If that makes sense.
I would say most of my life, the biggest decisions I had that I struggled making were like the life-changing ones. Like the ones that feel like whatever decision I make, like my life is going to take a drastic path and like there's no going back. So like college, whoa, what a horrible time I had like trying to decide. And then I decided, and then I chose like 3 more after that because I was like, I can't figure it out. Like, oh my gosh. And then once I got to A&M, I was like, ooh, let's try a couple different majors. Ooh, let's add some on. Like, you know. So I think, and then graduating, I really struggled. Like, do I go to grad school? Do I work? I chose work. Then got let go, and I was like, oh my gosh, do I apply to jobs in this city or this city or this city? Like, I think I struggle with like the futuristic decisions. Big reason too why I started therapy in 2020. Learned a lot through that, and just like have learned how to like process through those and deal with those. And I think now I try not to like get super caught up in it. I just try not to think about them, and I just like take them as they come.
Yeah.
So that's probably not the best advice, but I just kind of am like, all right, we're just gonna roll with the punches, and like that's a problem for future Rachel, and like we'll get there with it. If I can't problem solve it now, then I'm not gonna like put more brain power to it and like let myself get caught up in it, because I already have too many tabs open in my brain. Like,
that's so dang annoying. That's so annoying. That's probably the right approach. And that's, no, most people when they say it, it's like, and when I say it, it's like, oh, I'm saying this thing. It's like, do as I say, not as I do. But like listening to you say it, it's very clear. It's like, oh no, that's actually how you function. And it's like, no, damn it. It made me so mad.
I mean, it's not like a thing that comes natural, but it's like one of those, like, again, being the disciplined and like, changing my thought process and like learning like, ooh, I'm feeling like super anxious right now, or like this is working me up, and like recognizing that and then being able to like reel myself back in rather than allowing myself to go on that downward spiral and then like end up in like a puddle of like anxiety.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, this is totally off topic. What did you want to do? So you got an art teacher. What did you want to do when you were little? Like when you were, before you were even in high school or college, like what did you want to do when you grew up?
I was a kid that like every time you talked to me, I had something different. So beginning of, I debated, like I said, I kind of thought medical field for a while. I thought orthodontics. I thought oral surgery, honestly, because I was like, I just want to make like.
Are you thinking orthodontist and oral surgery as a 4-year-old?
No. Oh, sorry. This was high school.
No,
as like a 4-year-old.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
Okay.
I was just curious. Like it didn't start. It started. I'm like, wow, that's very far along.
I've been like through. I was like, astronaut, I literally wanted to be a mechanic. I was like,
no way.
Yeah, dude. No, my car broke down last weekend. What? Like, there's absolutely no way I could have been a mechanic. Like. No, that would have been horrible. Yeah. I wanted to be a chef for a really long time. I did like cooking school at Central Market as a kid. Like,
nice.
But anytime I would like cook, I would pretend I was on a cooking show like Rachel Ray or something, and like talk to my imaginary friends about what I was doing. I always knew I would end up doing something creative. And honestly, my dad said like he knew from when I was little that I would end up doing entrepreneurship, just because I was always like, ooh, how can I like make money as a kid? Like, can I do a lemonade stand, or I'm going to make these bracelets, or I'm going to do this. Like I very much already showed that, I guess, like characteristic as a kid, and then just being able to like believe in myself and be like, I can actually do this is really cool. What I think is super cool is that I'm only 25 and I've like done this. Like I feel like a lot of people don't get to this point until they're late 20s, maybe late 30s. Like I feel most people my age are still like trying to figure out what they're gonna do, you know?
Yes.
So I think that honestly is like a very recent discovery that I've made of like, oh, like this is actually like kind of cool that I'm so young and I am my own boss. Yeah. Like it's kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it. Sure. I like that thing about me.
Yeah. That's really cool. Well, hey, we're at an hour and 20. And I actually plot twist. I have this whole like list of topics, and I don't even think we like touched on them. We probably could talk for another hour and a half easily about these topics and different things.
We're gonna have part 2.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be awesome. Before we close up, is there anything that we didn't touch on specifically that you want to talk through or talk about?
I don't think so. I think the main thing I wanted to talk about, not even necessarily weddings, was just like entrepreneurship and just like, but I think we really did talk about that a lot. So
yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, the hardest part about podcasts to me are the intro and ending it, and the middle. But the problem for me, and it sounds like, is once you get in the middle, it's really really hard to follow like a very set thing, because it's very much like it flows, and then I'm always worried about, did we actually
that's entrepreneurship.
Did we talk about something that was important, or did we just ramble? And so yeah, I hope this was beneficial. And like, I hope you enjoyed it, because I thought this was awesome.
Little do you know, like, I'm a big fan of podcasts, and I was always like, oh my gosh, being on a podcast would be so freaking cool. Like, what the heck? So then when Rob texted me, I was like, little do you know, that's my dream come true. Like, what the heck?
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I super had fun. That made no sense.
No, I had a blast. So I'm super glad, really glad you came on. And I guess to close it out, again, this is a super small podcast, but we never actually talked about it. As far as, do you want to like plug your like wedding like business or website or social media or stuff like that?
Yeah, so my wedding business is called Honey & Co. Weddings, and my Instagram is honeyandco.weddings.
Nice. Yeah. Very simple. Nice.
Yeah. What I didn't realize is on my email, it looks like Honey and Cow.
Honey and Cow.
Because it's Honey & Co. Weddings.
Oh, yeah.
But it looks like Honey & Cow. And I said, nice. Didn't catch that when I made it, but oh well.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And you should talk. You should have a side hustle to your side hustle of just like talking to people fresh out of college about just like what to do. Because I think just from like an inspiration standpoint and just from a knowledge standpoint, I think it'd be really helpful. But yeah, I've got myself to certain degrees, I'm sure Emily to some degrees, and then I've got friends in their 20s that's like they have no idea what they want to do, and they're just like stressing about everything. It's super cool to hear your story and to see like what you're doing. I did not come into this like even thinking about that aspect, but it's super impressive to me. So congratulations, and it's been awesome having you on.
Thanks so much. It's been awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know how to wrap it up, so bye. I'm gonna clap. Wait, let me clap so I can sync it up later.